Hello YouTubers, Alaska Prepper here. Well, ladies and gentlemen, if you were part of yesterday's live stream, you probably remember me talking for a little bit about how I feel that with what the US is doing with these sanctions on Russia, that it's going to actually not be as beneficial as they think it will be. And the reason for that is because other countries are realizing that, hey, if I hold US dollars and the US doesn't like what I'm doing, they can just confiscate my dollars and they can just stop me from being able to interact with other countries, monetarily at least. And here this morning I come across this article that says IMF warns countries may cut dollar reserves in response to the US sanctions against Russia. And the thing is, ladies and gentlemen, it doesn't matter whether someone agrees or disagrees with what's going on in Russia and Ukraine. That's not what this video is about. But what this video is about is the optics. The optics that other countries are looking at. And they're seeing that, hey, wait a minute. Yes, we may not agree with what's going on in Ukraine. We may not agree that Russia should have invaded and all that kind of stuff. But the optics of, wait a minute. The U.S. can just confiscate our money that we have, that we're using in our account to be able to trade internationally. They can just block us from the SWIFT system as they've done to Russia. And they're starting to think, well, you know what? Maybe it's a good idea that we hold some of our foreign denominated assets a little less in dollars and maybe more in other things like commodities, i.e., gold, oil, or even other currencies from other countries, because they've realized that other nations are now doing bilateral trade. So being that the United States government pretty much cut Russia off of the SWIFT system, which is the international system by which countries can interact monetarily. So if you buy something from one country and it goes to another country, the form of payment will be in US dollars and it has to go through the SWIFT system, right? So being that the US did that, and also that they went as far as confiscating whatever reserves Russia had in the central bank, other countries are now starting to wonder whether they should have so many dollars in reserves. But if they have less reserves, that means that we, the people that hold the dollars, will have more dollars in the system, making those dollars worth less. Let's go ahead and read a little bit of this. It says here that they warned that Western sanctions on Russia, and more specifically the confiscation of dollar and euro denominated reserves held by the Russian central bank, could backfire by making other foreign central banks more reluctant to hold such a large amount of their own foreign reserves in dollars and euros. So pretty much what I said, other countries and other central banks are like, you know what, maybe we shouldn't hold that many dollars in case we do something that the US doesn't like. That way, if they do confiscate them, that it won't be that much, right? It's like us saying, and we talk about this all the time, don't keep more money in the bank than what you need to pay your bills, right? Why is that? Because if for some reason that bank closes, if for some reason that money in your bank account disappears, you only have a little bit in there and not a lot. The exact same thing that central banks are now thinking of doing with the US dollar, because they see what's going on with these confiscations of central bank holdings and with these sanctions. They continue to say, for decades now, the international dollar-based financial system has been underpinned by free market principles. Unfortunately, when Western institutions effectively confiscate reserves belonging to an independent central bank, they cut against that notion and prompt other nations to ponder the possibility, however remote, that they could be next. Ultimately, it's likely that some countries will reconsider the wisdom of so heavily relying on Washington. And they quote, "We are likely to see some countries reconsidering how much they hold of certain currencies and their reserves." Let's say, for example, we do go to a CBDC, a centrally banked digital currency. It would be the same thing on a personal basis as if you did something that the government didn't like and they just turned off your access to that CBDC account. So if it was the only way or the only form of payment that you had, if you went to the store, you wouldn't be able to use it. If you went to get gas, you wouldn't be able to use it. To pay your gas bill, you wouldn't be able to use it. That is effectually pretty much what they've done to Russia. And other countries are noticing that now. Now, on a personal basis, again, you would have the ability to go and barter with your neighbors and say, hey, listen, I can't use these Fed coins, but I can give you this for that. And your neighbors could say, yes, okay. That's what Russia is doing with China and other countries that it is now forming agreements with to do bilateral trades. I hope that made sense. All right, carrying on here, ladies and gentlemen. The IMF is already seeing an increasing fragmentation in global payment systems. On Thursday morning, it was reported that Russia and Iran are now working on a global financial messaging system that could act as an alternative to SWIFT. Ladies and gentlemen, whenever there is a problem that needs to be solved, the bigger the problem is for whoever it is, usually the harder they work and the faster that they work to solve that problem. And look at how long it's taken. I'm sure that Russia and China and Iran and Venezuela, pretty much the BRICS nations and beyond, have been working on an alternate system for years now because they've seen what's coming down the road. They've seen how the Federal Reserve and the U.S. government use their power to influence other countries to do what they want them to do or else. So they've been working on these systems probably for years. I can't confirm that, but I'm pretty sure that they have. And now these systems are going to go online. And when they go online, other countries are going to notice what's going on. And they just may jump on these systems as well. I'm not saying that they will leave the US dollar altogether, but that they also may jump on these systems as well. And I think that the Federal Reserve and the government are realizing this just because of the statement that the Fed chair said the other day, Jerome Powell, where he stated that, I'm paraphrasing, but that yes, I believe that this world can have two reserve currencies. And I did a video on that saying pretty much that the United States has accepted defeat. That we accepted defeat and saying that yes, we can have two world reserve currencies. Pretty much saying, yeah, our world reserve currency ain't good enough, so we can definitely have two. Here it says, Western sanctions could help spark a larger move away from holding reserves in the form of inside or aka fiat money, and instead see a movement toward a new system where crypto or perhaps a hybrid of gold and other commodities like oil serve as the new reserve asset. All right, ladies and gentlemen, so, if we go back to a time when we used to have controls and restrictions on how much governments could spend or print, it was back when we were in the Bretton Woods area or the Bretton Woods system, where our government could only have so much money out in the economy or out in the system that would suffice the amount of gold that we had backing it. Once that gold backing was taken away, it gave the government free rein to print as many dollars as it really wants without us knowing how much they print. If you think that we know how much the Federal Reserve / the government have printed over the past 5 decades, ever since they took us off the gold standard, we have no idea. And that is the point, ladies and gentlemen. We have no idea how much they printed over this time. That's why we are in the mess that we are in addition to that, due to a lot of bad leadership as well, and the policies that they have turned into law, if you want to call it law. And ladies and gentlemen, this is one of the things that the United States is very afraid of. All right, when Russia starts selling their oil or gas for Bitcoin or gold, and other countries start doing it, who are we going to bomb next? I know that one of the major influencers to other countries that they stay on the US dollar, on the Federal Reserve note, is our big military. But what are we going to do? Are we going to fight the entire world to make them stay on the dollar? In my opinion, the Federal Reserve and the government already knows that the Federal Reserve notes days are numbered. And now they are working on a system, in my opinion, they already have it in the background, to roll out before it finally dies. And this next system will be a lot worse than this one. So fortunately, we will return to a way that we can measure wealth in real terms instead of printing fake money out of thin air. And here's another one. El Salvador adopts Bitcoin as legal tender. Now, El Salvador is one of the few countries that actually has the US dollar as their legal tender. So they use US dollars as their legal tender. So now, not too long ago, just a few months back, they've adopted Bitcoin as legal tender as well. Check this out. The US Senate to consider a bill examining El Salvador's Bitcoin experiment. All right, ladies and gentlemen, the bill, which was passed out of committee on Wednesday, generated the displeasure of El Salvador's president. And let's just go ahead and read on just a little bit on this. And the name of the bill is Accountability for Cryptocurrency in El Salvador. Now, ladies and gentlemen, in all honesty, what business is it of ours? What business is it of any country? What form of currency a sovereign nation decides to use for their people? Right? Really, it should be no one's business. As long as that country is not breaking any international laws, not doing anything that's bad against humanity, and they're just trying to live their lives, just like you and me, it should be fine. They should be able to use whatever it is that they want, whatever their people want. But it says that this act was introduced by these senators, and it says that as El Salvador has adopted Bitcoin as legal tender, it is important that we understand and mitigate potential risk to the U.S. financial system. Now, why would a small country like El Salvador adopting Bitcoin as legal tender be a risk to the U.S. financial system? In my opinion, ladies and gentlemen, it's not their action of actually using a cryptocurrency as their legal tender, but it is the optics that other countries see that this country is actually doing it and succeeding while doing so. That's where I'll stop right now, ladies and gentlemen. I'll leave the link to this article and the other ones in a pinned comment down below. But let me go ahead and read that again really quick. He said in a statement that among other federal agencies, to mitigate such a potential empowerment of China and organized criminal organizations. Potential empowerment of China. Ladies and gentlemen, if there has been one country in the world that has empowered China the most in the last 20, 30, 40 years, it's been the United States. The United States is the country that allowed China to come out of being a third world nation and to being, I would say, a first world nation, being that they have the second highest GDP in the world, second to us, unless they've already passed us. I haven't heard of that, but I haven't really looked for it. Right? So why are they worried about empowering China when we've already done that job? We've done a very good job of empowering China. But that's just me thinking out loud. But the second one here is the one that worries me the most, because they said, and organized criminal organizations. Do a little bit of research and find out what currency is the currency that is mostly used for criminals or for crime around the world. And when you do that research, you'll know that it is the US dollar. A little bit about Bitcoin. I'm not going to try to bore you. But Bitcoin, ladies and gentlemen, in its simplest form, it is a secure ledger. It is a ledger that has an in and an out. And it is secure because there are too many networks keeping it up. Individual decentralized networks keeping it up. Meaning that it does not have a headquarters. The government can't just go and shut it down. It can shut down bridges or on and off ramps, as they like to call it. Like, for example, they can shut down Coinbase. So then how are you going to get your cryptos in and out? They can pass laws and tell banks, hey, you can't, have anything to do with cryptos. They can do all of this stuff, but Bitcoin itself, that blockchain can never be destroyed. And let's put the EMP stuff to the side, okay? Because if we did get an EMP that affected the entire grid of the whole world, people would be a lot more concerned about food, water, self-defense, warmth, shelter than they would be about any form of physical money, okay? Someone always throws that in, so let's just put that to the side. All right, ladies and gentlemen, so pretty much Bitcoin is very traceable. It is cumbersome to trace someone, but it is traceable. So for example, let's say that I bought some Bitcoin from Coinbase and I downloaded it to my, let me see if I have it here, and I downloaded it to my Trezor wallet. All right, this is a hardware wallet. All right, meaning that when I download my Bitcoin, private coins in here, they're no longer in the interweb. They're in here and they belong to me. All right. And let's say I did that, and then let's say that, I don't know, a year later or 2 years later or whatever, I went ahead and I used a different account. I went and opened up a different account in a different country, and I went ahead and downloaded my Bitcoin and I put it in a separate bank account or something like that. It can actually be traced back to me, even though I did all that stuff. Why is that? Because when I originally purchased my Bitcoin, there is a ledger. It's on the blockchain. It can never be taken off the blockchain. That's the beauty. That's the beauty about it. It can never be taken off the blockchain. That is why governments are so afraid of using blockchain technology to do the vote. If we voted using blockchain technology, there would be absolutely no cheating. Because once that vote was casted, it can never be taken off. It cannot be manipulated. But I digress. So they can track the day that I purchased the Bitcoin. They can track the wallet that it went into. They can actually track that it went into this wallet. Now, it doesn't say that this wallet belongs to me, but they can track that it went into this wallet's address. All right? And then let's say 5-6 years later, I change my name, I change locations, I live in a different country, I have a different bank account, I use a different service to download my Bitcoin into it and then put it in my bank account. They can see that the Bitcoin came out of that wallet, the same wallet that it went into. They can track Bitcoin. It wasn't meant to be anonymous. It wasn't meant to be used to try to deceive anyone or anything. What it was meant to do, in my opinion, was to act as a deflationary currency, number one, and a currency that could not be duplicated at will, like fiat currency. I hope that makes sense. I really do, because people have such a misunderstanding about what Bitcoin is. And the reason why it is plausible to think that Bitcoin may fail, the reason is not because of the technology, ladies and gentlemen. The reason is because of governments, because they are afraid of it, because with it, we hold the power. With Bitcoin, we hold the power. It takes away their power to create money out of thin air. It takes away their power. And I'll say it one more time, because someone is going to say it again. What happens if we have a corona mass ejection? What happens if we have an EMP? What happens if we have a grid down situation? Ladies and gentlemen, what happens? You rely on your preps. That's what we prep for. It's for those things that we cannot control. And if we have any of those things, then this is why I like to hedge everything. I hedge with gold and silver. But during a real SHTF, during a real grid down where the electricity is never coming back up, it's going to be a long time before you really even think about this. You're going to be thinking about food, water, medicine, self-defense, etc. I have made this video go on so much longer than it should have that I have to apologize. Having said that, I hope you join in this afternoon during our live stream. If you want to talk a little more about this, we can. We'll have a good time today. Other than that, remember to be good to each other. When good people do good things happen. Remember to reach one, teach one, and repeat. If we all did this, the world would be a better place, and you know that it will be a better place. Many blessings to all of you and your families. I'm Alaska Prepper, and I am out.